Welcome back. Our next speaker is the growth architect and founder of the Women's Code. She leads a training company specialized in growing, building, and scaling businesses. HuffPost calls her one of the 50 must-follow entrepreneurs. Once $135,000 in debt as a single parent, she bootstrapped her passion for photography into a highly successful global business and eventually sold it to Bill Gates in a multi-million-dollar deal. She has spoken at Chevron, Merck Pharmaceuticals, the advertising agency Tracy Locke, Cal State University, Dominguez Hills, small business development centers, the University of Hartford, and has been a frequent guest at top-ranked entrepreneur podcasts. She will show you today what the 7 steps of the inevitable recovery are so that you can map out your path to intentional implementation. Please join me in welcoming Beate Chelette. Beate, it is an absolute joy to have you here.
Tyler, I can't wait. I can't wait to talk to you. I can't wait to do this. And I think we should just start strong and dive right in. Are you ready?
I am born ready. Let's do this.
All right. So welcome, everybody. My name is Beate Chelette. I am the growth architect. And today I want to share with you some of the things about what I call the inevitable recovery, because most business owners at this time are wondering, what in the world am I going to do now? How am I going to get back to business? I'm going to find clients. I'm going to fill my pipeline. What are clients worried about? How do I need to adjust my messaging? And is it even a good time to sell? Should I reduce my prices? So there's 1,000 things that are going on right now. So I want to help you to figure this out as much as I can. And then we'll talk a little bit about what else there is available for you and what other things I do that might be helpful for you. So let's address the concerns that your clients are having. In the inevitable recovery, so a disaster, and this is my 8th disaster, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that in a minute. There is a cadence to disasters, and it always comes in like these 3 phases. The first phase is survival, what people worry about: who am I going to be with, where I'm going to hunker down, how do I live, where's the money going to come from, is my family safe? So this is a basic survival portion of a disaster. Once we kind of adjust to the situation, the second phase kicks in, and that's the opportunity phase. That's when you see people that are saying, whoa, I found this amazing idea, or I've been, selling, I've been retooling, I've changed my manufacturing plant, I'm doing something different. I had to shift my business, or the P word, the pivot word, which you probably all have heard about 2,695,000 times by now, right, Tyler?
Oh, absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So we are pivoting and pivoting and pivoting. So in the opportunity, it really means that you're looking for what the opportunity is, and then you initiate the shift for your business that you need to kind of get to a better place, because you kind of can sit here and worry 24/7, which is why you are here. So the third part of the inevitable recovery is the actual recovery phase. This is when, we're reaching out. This is when we are starting to see our business coming back. This is when we are, having more clients, or when we're making money again. However, the recovery, and I'm just going to tell you right now, is not going to be what you think it is going to be, because the one thing that's not going to happen, it is not going to be the way it was before. Because if before would have been this great, we wouldn't be having this discussion, would we? Then your business would have had vertical expansions. It would be disaster proofed. It would have passive income, and you'd be just, clicking a button, and things would be moving right along. So it caught you a little bit by surprise. So what people misunderstand about recovery or disaster recovery is that you think this is the way it was. Now, blah, 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 and it's going to get right back to where it was. It will never get back to the way it was. And this is partially due to the reason that to form a habit, and Tyler, I know you know this really well, this portion of this conversation, changing habits.
Yeah, it's critical and crucial.
It's critical and crucial. So we are like 21 to 60 days to change a habit. Now, given, the disaster we are in right now, followed by the civil unrest, We are now looking at a long time and habit changing behavior. And so this is important for you to know because it's going to change how you feel about what I'm going to tell you next, because you have to keep in mind that not just have your habits been changed, but so have the habits of your customers and your clients. And it doesn't matter if you're a business to consumer or if you're business to business, everybody has changed. So I have designed something that I call the 5-star success blueprint. And in this 5-star success blueprint, there are, as the name suggests, 5 very distinct steps. So I find that when you build a business, it has a particular sequence to it. In the first step, you design the business model and you turn the talent into a business. And you start looking at why do you do what you do, your mission, your vision, you put that all together. In the second step, you put your sales process together, because once you know what it is, now you can develop products and services, and you package them in such a way that they're value-based, not dollar for time. If you do that, that's generally a really, really bad idea. But in the pricing part, always focus on the value. And then in the third portion and the third step, we go to authority platform building. That's when you go out and tell the world why you are so amazing. And so this is the number one mistake I see a lot of businesses make, is that you start doing the authority platform building before you even have done the other steps. That's when, right, Taylor? When they're on social media and they're having opinions and they're trying this and they're trying that. What do you think about that?
Well, you and I have discussed this a couple of times now, and I always say it, if I post, they will come. And that is just not the case, right? As you said, you have to do those other steps first before you can start saying, I am the authority on all of this.
Exactly. Yes. So what Tyler said, if you post, they probably won't come unless you have all this other stuff in place. And that means you're just wasting your money. In the next step, we talk about leadership, because in order for you to run a successful business and to really grow, build, and scale it, you have to learn how to be a good leader. And here, the number one mistake is always made in the mini-me cloning, when the business owner says, oh, gee, I just need 5 people that are just like I am, and that is guaranteed for you to remain in your status quo position. So we want you to actually recognize who you are as a leader, so that you understand your strengths and weaknesses, and then you can hire to your weaknesses and bring people in that are helping you to grow your business. Super simple, so often misunderstood. And in the final step of growth architecture, we are doing growth strategies, where we are looking at automation, at how do we really get these numbers to double and triple. So let's dive into what I want to talk to you about. The first question I have, and Tyler, I want to have a little bit of your input on that, is, do you think it's changed what clients worry about now?
I think 100% what our clients worry about has changed. I think it was changing a year ago, and it certainly has changed within the last 3 to 4 months.
Yes. And so some of the things that we are seeing that we didn't have before are these existential fears, or the anger and the frustration, the mental the mental aspect of having been at home, the not knowing how this is going to pan out, how is it going to recover, when is it going to recover. So clients worry very much like you about a lot of the same things. My family's safe. Will I be able to put food on the table? Am I going to be taken care of? Do I have to tap into my reserves? So these are all things that when you are running a business, that you need to ask yourself, are you actually addressing those emotions, those feelings, and those fears? And Tyler, here's another one for you. How many of these LinkedIn invitations do you still get that still promise you the 7-figure income in 10 days or less if you only do this one thing?
Oh yeah, the LinkedIn invitations, the Facebook ones, the unqualified emails, the friend request, and you get them and instantaneously they're telling you what your problem is instead of asking. I know that trap, and it frustrates me beyond anything.
Exactly. So what Tyler said, it you need to really think about as you go out right now, what is it that you want to say? And if the message that you're coming out with has actual relevance to what we are seeing is happening right now. So let's talk a little bit about me and why I am even here talking to you and what I can possibly share with you about disaster recovery and business. So I am original from Germany and I immigrated to the United States. I was a photographer and a photo editor at Elle magazine. And then I decided I needed to immigrate to the United States because I wanted a little bit more adventure. Well, this adventure has not stopped until today. And I came here, I set up my business because I was laid off. I had, had got married. My ex-husband was perfect. He had only two tiny problems. He was an alcoholic and a pathological liar. So that didn't really pan out so well for me. And then I find myself in a country that's not my own as an immigrant, as a, freshly divorced young woman with a small child. And I am being laid off after fires, floods, mudslides, and that big earthquake where all the business, fell apart. And I had to figure out how to be an entrepreneur and put food on the table. So I learned that in a disaster, you have to be very diligent in the way you think. So I had to train myself to worry about money only, twice a month when I had to pay my bills. And I eventually got my business, with all the good discipline and all the education I could possibly find and listening to a bunch of, you know, uh, programs and going to events. I learned how to run a business, and I ran about $1 million business, which was pretty good. And then the day comes, Tyler, and I don't know if you've ever had a day like that where you just have this horrible feeling something's wrong and you don't know what it is. Can you relate to that?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. The why I know the shoe is about to drop, what will it be?
Exactly. And so I found out that my key employee got a little bit too close to my key vendor, and the two of them, came up with this brilliant idea on how to run a business, which was in essence my business just without me. And so next thing I know, invoices are paid to them, not to me. And the clients are mad at me for asking them where the heck my money is because they don't want to be in the middle of it. And so I sued them because the other thing you need to know about me and Germans in general, we kind of like to be right.
You don't say.
Surprise. And so I sued them and I get into this like insane lawsuit that only happens in Los Angeles or only happens in America. And I get deeper and deeper and deeper into that. And I'm fighting like a lion. And as I think, now production season is rolling around because production season for still photography production, which I was providing at the time, was from September on until, where it was cold everywhere else in Europe. And, Wrangler, Levi's, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, they all flew to Los Angeles and I produced their photo shoots. And then September 11th comes. And in 24 hours, my business is over. I mean, out cold. That was
And
go
I mean,
ahead, Tyler.
that always just, and I think a lot of people can relate to that, where you have that snap event. But I think in particular, I mean, it shows just how vulnerable businesses can be, that it can stop overnight. So I think that's the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to from learning from you today. And I don't want to take up too much of the flow of your presentation, but that, first of all, the wake up call, it can be done overnight. And then second of all, what do we do to, as you point out, disaster proof ourselves? So sorry to cut in, but it's just
No,
such a
I love
poignant
it
point.
because you just created the little cliffhanger right there. So now everybody's going like, yeah, that's right. That's why I'm really here. That's what I want to hear from her. What did she do now? So anyway, the first thing I did is I settled that lawsuit. It ended up being zero. Then I had this other really brilliant idea. Unfortunately, I had to start from zero again. So guess what? I go deeper into debt again. And then I go to Germany. My father has a stroke. My father didn't have a stroke. My father had pancreatic cancer. And then my father passes within a couple weeks. I'm at the funeral, paying for it on money I don't have. My phone rings. It's my office in Los Angeles. And they said that we've been served a notice and I'm losing the house on top of everything. So you thought that was really bad. Well, that wasn't the plan for me. There was more to come. So I had to come back and I had to make some really hard decisions. Bankruptcy attorney, or, I'm going to close this because I'm out. When you have to borrow money to pay interest on borrowed money, it's a really good business plan, right, Tyler?
Oh, that's just a debt spiral right there. I hear you.
Exactly. So here I am. And what you don't know about me, though, is that I wrote a business plan in the meantime. And I also wrote a letter to the President of the United States. Why not? And so I said, hey, you always talk about businesses being the backbone of the American economy. I'm going to give you a real opportunity to prove that. Well, what do you know? I get a letter from the White House. And this letter from the White House, while I am certain the president has never seen, did put me in touch with the Small Business Administration. And because I was ready with my business plan, they were able to find me a bank that was restructuring my debt. And that freed up my line of credit. 3 months later, I'm break even. 18 months later, I'm the world leader in celebrity at home stores, which was the business that I built. I'm licensing into 97 countries in the world. A Bill Gates company comes, knocks on my door and says, we want you to tell us how you do it. Like any decent woman, I said, absolutely not. You want it? You want it?
And rightfully so.
Yes. You want this? You need to pay for this. And so they made me an offer of many million dollars that was just too good to refuse. And so this is how I became, from my worst moment to my best moment, I did this in 18 months. And so now let's talk about exactly how I did that.
Well, and while you're getting that slide, I think it really illustrates the first point that you were talking about initially when we were starting this presentation about knowing your value. To be able to confidently say, this is what I am worth, not on a time basis, not on an hourly basis, but this is what my concept, this is what my product, this is what my company is worth, and really having that valuation in mind. So I think that's an excellent example right there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes. So here's what I learned. I learned that leadership really has two sides to it. There is the leadership where you have to turn it on and you have to charge hard and win. And there's leadership where you have to be empathetic and you have to really pay attention to what's going on, which is exactly why we're having this conversation, because I want you to really look into how you show up as a leader in your business, because we may need to be making a few adjustments here. You want to have the ability to master both. You want to understand what situational leadership is, and we are going to be flipping the model. So here's the letter from the White House, so you know that it actually arrived. And just so you know, because today I'm a multimillionaire, but if you look at this, this is really how I started. I paid $500 for that car, and if you look really close, it has a 007 license plate. Just for kicks and giggles. And I did sleep on a futon on a floor. Humble beginnings. Okay, so what does this all mean for you? Now we're going into marketing and messaging. And we talked about in the first step of the inevitable recovery, is your messaging relevant? So the first thing I want you to do is you need to go to your website, you need to go to your collateral, you need to go to your brochures and however you show up, and you need to make sure that the language that you're using actually reflects what's going on. The one thing I don't want you to do, please do not send a COVID-19 message on how the owner of your company feels about COVID-19 and how the safety and the whatever is super important. We've seen like what like only everybody, including my hairdresser, sent these messages out, and now everybody's sending out the Black Lives Matter messaging. I don't think that's really necessary for you right now. I think you just need to acknowledge how people feel about things. So just talk about the sensitivities, but you do not need to send your clients another email that you're aware of what's going on. I think everybody is plenty aware of what's going on. You need to go a step further and actually put that in action on your website, making sure that these things are addressed. So the second step is we are now talking about assuming leadership. So what you see is working in a pandemic and in civil unrest, really in any disaster, is a person that does the opposite of wait and see, is the person that a person who assumes leadership. So we've seen this in New York. We've seen this with some of the governors. We've seen this all over in certain pots and pockets where suddenly somebody steps up and you're like, yeah, I really like that. And what did these leadership attributes entail? Empathy. They had to, which is a female-centric component of leadership. It's like we understand what's going on. And then it says, we're going to get everybody, we're going to do this together, community building, and then a strong message that often is uncomfortable, the hard truth. Here's what we need to do to get there. And that is a more male-centric leadership attribute. And I talk a lot about leadership because I want you to stop thinking that you can differentiate how your business shows up and how you show up. How you show up is how your business is going to show up. So, Tyler, you're nodding. You want to?
You're echoing. In my first book, it's exactly what I had said too. That you can't. There is no silo between your corporate culture and your leadership. How you are as a leader, as a business owner, is what your corporate values are. They're not distinct. Your business is a reflection of you.
Yes. And that is exactly the point that we're making here. Is I see this a lot, primarily with men, that men oftentimes say, well, but that's just the personality I have at work. At home, I'm completely different. And for me, it's been always one of those things where I'm going like, what? Are you like Jekyll and Hyde? Like you go home and you like become like this lovely, wonderful person and you go to the office and you yell at everybody?
It's my secret identity.
Yeah, maybe it's like 0019 or something. But this is really, in today's time of transparency, authenticity, of self-awareness, really not the way to go. I mean, I'm going to be very, very clear about that. That does not work at all anymore. So if that is you, I do recommend you to make sure you are paying attention to how you show up as a leader. And if you don't like it, you change it. So the question I have based on that is self-awareness. What is your innate leadership style? And is that what's going to work right now? And we have in America one leadership example. I'm not going to say the word, but it's very at the top where we see that a particular leadership style does not work in a crisis. And the results are catastrophic. So you need to be very clear about how you want to show up as a leader and on whether or not that style works right now. And if it doesn't work right now, then look at your team and pull out the people that have empathy and the social conscience and the, and your minorities and your women on your teams, and put them in the spot where they can support your messaging so that whatever you put out there doesn't sound like another trite message, but something that you actually, from the bottom of your heart, mean. Because people are going to snuff it out when it's a fraud.
And I guess, Beate, one of my other questions for you then is, what are some of those signposts? So there's signposts and markers and DNA of a good leader. A lot of times we don't have the awareness of ourselves. So what are some of those signs that maybe our leadership style or strength is not as strong as we would like it to be?
That's a really, really great way to look at it. So basically, it's what's coming at you. If people hate you, you suck. If
That's German efficiency for you folks right there.
that's yeah, I mean, let's just take the Band-Aid and rip it right off here. Um, a lot of times people say, well, it's your problem because you're misunderstanding me. The only criteria that matters and how you show up as a leader and how good you are is how people react to you. If people like you, if they go through the fire for you, if they show up, if they work overtime, if they don't, if they're glad to be there, if they're engaged, if they communicate, you're doing something right. If they're stealing the tape from the supply closet and taking that home, you suck because they're sticking it to you. So these are really telltale signs of just look what's going on around you, and then you make the decision based upon what's really happening, not what your intention is, but the reality of it. All right, let's move to the next point. All right, so the next is mindset. So here is a huge part of what works right now in recovery and what doesn't. If you are still consuming CNN, NBC, Fox, whatever it is that you're watching, and it's running excessively, you are polluting your mind and you are not thinking clean. The objective of clean thinking is every day when you wake up, the first thing you should do is you give yourself a little pep talk. It's going to be a great day. We're going to have an awesome time. Can't wait to see who the clients are. They're going to be booking me today. And that's the mindset that you need to be in. Because at the end of the day, it's a story that you're telling yourself in your head of why certain things can't be done, because it's difficult, because other people have problems, because the economy is going down, the stock market is volatile. And so you keep telling yourself those stories. And then the question I have for you, are those stories even true?
And I think it's an incredibly valid point where we get so wrapped up in what we're telling ourselves that we forget that it is our own internal dialogue. It is our own view, our own viewpoint, our story. And it is exactly that. It's a story. There's the truth, and then there's our story. And as long as we have the ability to change our story. And so it's a really good point that you're bringing forward.
Thank you. And I call it clean thinking for a reason, because if you don't think clean and good thoughts, there's nobody out there convincing you that what you are actually believe in, all this negativity, is wrong. So it's up to you to do that or suffer the consequences, really. And I see this all the time, especially when you're on Facebook, exactly the people that are being pulled into the rabbit hole. So let's talk about pricing, the next step in the inevitable recovery. So, pricing is one of those things. Again, it's all customer centric. What do they need? And where is their ability to spend money on certain things? So there's a colleague of mine, also an entrepreneurial trainer, and she came out with this whole program, and she said, the time to scale your business up is now. And I'm standing there and I'm going like, no. This is not the time to scale, like at all. This is the time to provide fundamentals and safety and security and trust. This is not the time to scale. You have to be super careful. So again, what you're offering right now is based upon what your clients are needing. I generally tend to not believe in discounts and coupons and things like that, because I think you're training your clients to wait for these types of opportunities. And once you start at a low rate, it's really hard to raise it. So I prefer to give bonuses and what I call fast action incentives, because it sounds better than a coupon. So with the pricing, you want to be super, super, super careful about it. The next step is building the pipeline. So if you are binging on Netflix, who the heck is running your business? This is the time for pipeline building. And pipeline building right now is about conversations, communications, relationship buildings, building because people are actually answering their phone because they're not in the office. They're not, they're not having the constant running in between offices. They're sitting like right there so they can answer you. So this is the time where you want to build your pipeline so that when, your dip, whatever the business is picking back up, you are right there at the top of the game coming right out of it. Tyler, do you have any thoughts about pipeline building at this time?
Well, I think it's just an excellent point that you made. We are currently in an environment where people are actually seeking connection. So this is, as you said, the prime opportunity for you to reach out. And if you reach out authentically, truly be able to build your audience, because they're looking for that connection, and they're also looking for the guidance. So if
Yes.
you can offer the solution in a practical and easy to comprehend manner and show that you care, genuinely care, I think you're right. This is the time to build that pipeline.
Exactly. And that's the key, so what we just said, leadership, assume leadership, make these phone calls, distance yourself a little bit from trying to sell too hard, but just say, what are your issues? And then if you identify the issues, you tell them what the solutions are that you have, because remember, we just talked about how you need to adjust your products based upon what's going on in the market. So the question I have for you now is, how will you reach out to your prospects, to your existing clients, and to your lost clients? So there really are these three buckets that each of these buckets needs a different messaging right now from you. So that's, instead of, like, when people literally say to me, so what have you discovered on Netflix during COVID? I'm like, nothing.
And why is that? Because you are busy building your business, I'm assuming.
I don't have time for this. I'd rather spend my time in things that either make me a better person. I've worked a lot on my mindset. That's really been my main focus, because I got caught up in the negativity, and I really didn't like how that felt. I couldn't sleep, I was always angry, and nobody likes an angry middle-aged woman running around. It's just a really bad look. So there's nothing wrong with my age, but being angry, there's something very wrong with that. And I just didn't want to be that. So I changed it. And that's why I'm telling you, just be mindful about what you do. All right. So overall, the message here really is, you need to stop waiting. Waiting is a horrible, horrible idea. And I've put together this really awesome infographic, which we will be providing to you for free. So you can print it out. You can have it right there in front of you, so you can see the consistent steps. And now we're going to talk about the final step of the inevitable recovery, and that is intentional implementation. So here are two things, and I'm going to make this very clean, basic for you. So I've created a program, and the inevitable recovery was a Facebook Live event that I did over 7 days. And what I found is, and I did this, Tyler, and this goes to what we had talked about. I did this because I felt people needed help and support. So I didn't do this because I wanted to make an offer. I did this out of the genuine desire to do this. But what happened over these 7 days is that people say, this is so good, because every day we got like a little 20-minute lesson, and we learned something, and we don't want it to stop. So I created the Intentional Implementer, which is a weekly mastermind program. So it's a 20-minute session per week where we talk about, how do you find clients, how do you fill the pipeline, how what the messaging is. We are there's a Facebook group attached to it, so it streams live on Facebook, and then we go in implementer rooms following thereafter, where we then actually talk about how to implement, hold each other accountable, and move forward. So I started adding people to that. I made it dirt cheap. It's $97 a month for 4 sessions. It's every Wednesday. It's the midweek fix, and for the first 25, it's $67. So if you are having a hard time staying focused and really keeping your mindset clean and clear, you want to be around other people that have the same desire to make a contribution, to help people to live good and better lives, So I made it really super easy for you because I don't, this is a pretty straightforward offer. If you are one of those who does better when you have ongoing support instead of self-guiding yourself through an online training program, but you actually like to speak to people and want that sense of community and be around other people that are rebuilding their businesses and want to intentional implement, have a good mindset, consistently execute on these actions, reaching out to clients, filling the pipeline, testing messaging on what you need to say to prospects, what you need to say to people you've worked with, but you lost as clients. That's the right group for you. And we're having actually a really fun time. It's businesses from all over, and they do all kinds of different things. And again, the fee is a no-brainer. The investment's $97 a month. First 25 is 67, and it's monthly. There's no commitment, so you can stay as long as you like. You can stay a month. It doesn't matter to me. I'm here to help you. If you resonate with this, go check it out. And if you want to talk to me directly, I've started to offer these 90-minute strategy planning sessions, which are $385, which is structured. I have a process I'll take you through to help you really map out what those next 30 days need to look like for you to get back on track. And you find all of this on successblueprint.biz. Again, successblueprint.biz. And this is right for anyone who needs a little bit of support. So the recap of this webinar, we talked about what clients worry about. We talked about marketing and messaging. We talked about you as a leader and how you need to show up. We talked about your mindset, clean thinking. So I'm going to put you on a diet, on a bad thought diet. You are going to practice on how to think good thoughts for an hour. And let's see how far you can go. The first time you do this, you might make it to 5 minutes. And then, another one of these thoughts comes in. So it's just practice the mindset diet. Then we talked about pricing, where you want to look at what you offer and what you're charging for it. It's probably a good time to do payment plans and things like that in the pricing. So just look at it. These are the things you need to look into to rebuild your business just better. And then finally, how do you start your pipeline, making phone calls, getting out there, building relationships. And then the final one is, what is your plan to intentional implementation? And if you need help with that, I'll be more than happy to do that with you. Again, here is the URL, successblueprint.biz, if you want to check it out. And I also have a bunch of gifts for you. So for those of you who are just happy just seeing me here and don't want anything further, but want the free stuff, there's where the free stuff is. And you can go to beatechelette.com/free-gifts and download a whole bunch of stuff. And that is it for me, because if not now, when? And if not you, then who?
Oh, Beate, I want to thank you so much for that. And because we do have just a little bit of time, maybe one or two thoughts just to wrap up. I really like your analogy of clean thinking. I know right now I'm on a clean eating diet. I, like many people, would spend a little bit more home time currently. And I found that my activity had gone really down. And all of a sudden, I had put on 15 pounds that I didn't realize was there. In fact, a lot of our members will recognize this. I had a beard up until yesterday, and then I shaved it, and my face was a little puffy. So I was like, we got to do it. And one of the things that I was getting into was clean eating, being very conscious of the foods that were going into my body. And I know that I feel better already just having gotten rid of some of the processed foods. So I love your analogy of clean thinking, being aware of the thoughts that are going through our mind, and acknowledging that, hey, every once in a while, some of that processed food is going to make it into my diet by no fault of my own. And instead of beating myself up for, hey, you ate that thing, acknowledge the fact that it came, it went, and let's move on and get back to the cleaner thoughts. So I love that idea. Any other tips that you'd like to share?
You just made, yeah, well, you just made a really important point, because the minute you give it emotion, it's real. So when you get angry that you've made a mistake, then you're burning it into your memory because you're giving it an emotion. So the objective of the clean thinking is to almost look at yourself and say, oh, look at that. This is what my subconscious is presenting me with right now. And yeah, that's so fascinating. So now I had this moment, Tyler, so last week, and and I'm no different than anybody else. I'd rather redo my sock drawer than pick up the phone, right? And then you go, why is that? That is so interesting. Why do I feel like that about it? It's like, wow, you didn't do your calls again. You go like, what is it about that made me not do that? And then I realized it was the fear of rejection. And I'm like, but is that even true? And I'm like, no, it's not, because when I talk to people, we generally tend to have a really good time. So where does this even come from? So that's what I talked about, the story we tell ourselves. Is it even true? It's not even true. And guess what? The minute I said that, guess who is like, oh, I have no problem reaching out to people now, because you resolved the underlying issue by acknowledging it, but giving it no value.
Well, I think that's great advice for everybody. And it ties back to your point about leadership. Like, I can see where all of these are interlinked and intertied, from your mindset to how you show up as a leader to how you're perceived, building that pipeline by having those real communications with your clients, or showing your empathy or your concern so that they feel that they're valued and understood and heard. Like, all of that, I see it coming together. And the great thing is you've put together some awesome freebies for us. So anybody who wants that, or if they want more information about the courses that you're offering, we've got that in the resources page. So we will have all that information up in the resources page. They can go and check it out. And Beate, it was just an absolute joy and a pleasure to sit down with you. And thank you for giving us your time and your knowledge. I'm very grateful and thankful for it.
I had a blast. Thank you for having me, Tyler.
No problem. So everybody, Beate Chelette, and if we need any information, we can get it in the resources pages. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us, and we'll see you shortly.